Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Franchise Interviews, where for over 15 years now, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show. Well, today, Franchise Interviews is celebrating National Pizza Day, Wednesday, February 9th. You know, over the years, we've met with some exciting pizza franchises, and today you're going to hear interviews with 3 pizza franchises. So first, you'll hear an interview with Mary Jane Riva, the CEO of Pizza Factory. Next, we're going to meet with Tom Kraus, the CEO of Donato's Pizza. And then we're going to end the show with Jeff Melnick, the president of Boston's Pizza. And let's go right into our interview with Mary Jane Riva, CEO of Pizza Factory. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 11 years now, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. We're meeting with Mary Jane Riva, the CEO of the Pizza Factory. And founded 30 years ago, Pizza Factory has become well known for serving fresh, high-quality pizza, sandwiches, salads, and more. Hi, Mary Jane. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Hi, Marty. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
This is my pleasure, Mary Jane. You know, I made sure that I ate lunch before I spoke to you today, because I knew this show could be. I love pizza. I could eat pizza every day, so I definitely came prepared. You know, we always like to ask our guests, where are you calling from today, Mary Jane?
I'm actually on the coast of California right now, heading down for the holidays, but our corporate office is actually in Oakhurst, right outside of Yosemite, so not too rough having an office up there.
No, it's not, is it? A beautiful part of the country, absolutely. You know, Pizza Factory, really has a long history, Mary Jane. You know, we've been doing this show now 11 years, and I can't say that we've had a lot of organizations that have been around 30 years, you know, so I think that's fantastic. I know Pizza Factory has a very interesting history. Maybe we could talk about some of the highlights during that time.
Yeah, you're right. We have been around a long time, and the concept has always been we tend to go into smaller communities where a lot of your other brands you see will not. They look at demographics, they look at rooftops, and we're quite the opposite. We go into a community because we're so family-based, and we're also very involved in our communities. Our owners are that we really go in and try to find a town that's going to, for us. So we go into a lot of smaller towns, and but, yeah, our product is different than everybody else's, and the fact that we still are the old-fashioned pizzeria. We make everything on site, and, so it's kind of a throwback.
Which is great, you know, and that's definitely your niche in the market, Mary Jane. You know, it was interesting. What caught my attention when I was reading about the Pizza Factory was you had this no bully zone program, you know, and I thought that was really fantastic. We had a franchise many years ago. It's going back like 5-6 years ago, and he started a karate franchise because he was bullied as a child, you know, and this is a real problem in the United States. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because I thought it was a great program.
Yeah, for us, it encompasses a lot of different things. Not only our communities with the anti-bully programs, we don't raise funds for it. It's not a profit thing at all. It's strictly what we do is we give to the schools all the materials, because schools do not have the funding anymore to be able to do some of these programs. So we provide the programs for them, and we go and talk to the kids. But we employ so many young folks in our towns. It's Speech Parlor, usually high school kids. So there's that element of the kids that are working for us, but then plus because we are a sit-down family restaurant, we have so many kids coming in all the time. So we try really hard to give materials to the parents and to the kids to be able to at least talk about it and see what is maybe. A lot of times the parents will sit down with their kids at dinner, and they're all having to sit there because it's the pizza. They all have to eat from the same thing. And we have little menus and different coloring sheets for the kids, and it actually engages the parents with the kids to start having that conversation, because maybe their child is experienced something, and most of the time parents don't even know what's going on with their kids when they're being bullied. They don't tell anybody. So we're trying to, you know, give them both the schools and parents and just the atmosphere in our restaurants, that it's something to be able to be talked about, and to give them alternatives. What do you do if you're being bullied? And sometimes it's, what if you're the bully? You know, maybe the bullies, you know, needs help. Sometimes we forget about the people that actually have the the issue that feels like they have to bully others.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Mary Jane. My son, we sent him to a Christian school, and in all the years he's been going to the school, they've never addressed the topic of bullying, and we were really surprised and shocked about it. And we confronted the principal of the school. I guess it never occurred to her. And we know that sometimes it does go on. It doesn't matter what school it is. It could be the finest school. It happens all over the place, doesn't it? Kids are kids, absolutely.
Kids are
we were
kids.
kids.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. And that was my son too. He went to a Christian school, and he had the same experiences, and I had no idea. They just, kids don't come home and tell you all the time, and it was the same thing. Sometimes we just don't pay attention, or we're not aware of what's really going on. So it's a real close project for me personally because of my son and just I love kids and working with kids and how many kids that we touch every day at our restaurants. It's just something that really works for us, and it's great to be able to go into a school and do a presentation and you see those kids raising their hands, telling their story, or they talk about something and you just your heartstrings, you just go, oh my gosh,
of course.
There's so many kids that are affected by this.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's a wonderful program. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how technology's played a role in the business today, Mary Jane. Because it's been around a long time, 30 years. So I know the way you do things. The Pizza Factory today is much different than the way you did it 30 years ago.
Oh yeah.
How has technology played a role in the business today?
It's a huge role for everybody, and it's changing daily. And you're right, from 30 years ago, there wasn't a POS system that were in stores. It was the old-fashioned cash register. So we adapted. You have to retrain everybody and get everybody onto the same goal of staying with the technology and staying relevant in the market out there today. And between the POS system and you've got Text Club now, you've got Email Club, Twitter. It just goes on, and every day there's something new. So it's really staying on top of it and staying educated as best as you can because it does change so fast. So we have a good advertising agency, and we've got people in our office that's what they do is make sure that we are staying relevant because you can real quick get behind the times these days. It just happens so fast.
It sure does, absolutely. It's well said. Pizza is what I love about pizza is it's healthy for you, Mary Jane. So like when my wife and I would go out, we'll go out for pizza because it's a healthy alternative. But it's interesting, in doing the show such a long time now, it's amazing how the pizza industry it just seems to keep getting bigger and bigger. What are the numbers up to today? Where are we at in the pizza industry?
Gosh. As far as units out there for
I saw a crazy number. Well, I don't know if it was on your website. I think it was like 40 million? Was it 40 million? I can't remember how many. Something like that. It's a crazy number of how many pizzas are served every single day in the United States. It's really it's part of our culture, isn't it? So it's safe to say that you're certainly part of a huge industry, and this industry just seems to keep getting bigger and bigger, which I think is wonderful. What's been one of the most interesting things that's happened to you, since taking over the leadership role of Pizza Factory, Mary Jane? Anything stand out? I'm sure you have hundreds of stories that you could recite, but anything stand out over the time?
Yeah, there's been a lot of changes that we've done in the last 5 years alone, but it is, there's a lot of pizza out there, and you're right. It's just it's eaten a lot and it's shared a lot, but everybody has their own experience, and I think it's the experience of the different pizza places that you see out there. Which one of the things that sets us apart is that we are still that old-fashioned pizzeria where you go in after your football games, you take your family in. We're not a takeout and delivery only. So there's a lot of places out there that you can get pizza. And speaking of nutrition, what you started out with, it's interesting because, pizza really is. If you gave your kids leftover pizza in the morning, it's much better than a lot of those sugary cereals that are out there. Yeah. And so pizza really does. It has all the food groups and everything. So a lot of times people tend to want to think pizza is not a good source of nutrition, but it actually does have a lot of good elements in it that, especially like I said, for pizza or for breakfast, if you can't get your kid to eat, most of them will eat pizza. And so it's a good way to to keep that nutrition in them. But there's so many new pizza places coming out, and it's a constant who's coming out with the next new fad, and a lot of them are that. And, for us, it's still been the same thing, a good quality product, treat your community well, integrate with your community, be a part of it, don't just go in and set up shop. And so that's still for us been the driving force, and that's what we're going to continue to do regardless of what the new fads that are coming out. We're going to stick with what's worked for us for 30 years, and we've been successful with it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice having that track record, and it's nice having that history. And that, the beauty of franchising, Mary Jane, is that, your franchisees, they become part of a system that's been around for 30 years. And how many of us can say that, to just start a business and say, okay, we've been around for 30 years, it doesn't happen. That can only happen really with franchising, so I think it's wonderful. What types of characteristics then do you look for in your franchisees, Mary Jane? Any particular type of traits?
We really look, we do our studies, and we, do our due diligence with our franchisees or our prospects like everybody else. But what we're really looking for, when it really comes down to it, we like to sit one-on-one with them and really get to know their personality. Because of our culture, because we do get involved in our communities, we're looking for folks that really want to give back. They're not just looking to set up a bunch of pizza places and, have managers and walk around. We want the people that are going to really believe in the product, number one, because we have a great product, and we don't want someone to come in and really not stand behind the product, but they have to be able to get into their communities, make those connections, and have that personality with both their staff and their communities. So when people come in, it is their pizza place. It is that town's pizza place, and they know the owner. The owner knows their name. It's a very, very personal experience for everybody. It's that old-fashioned, hometown pizzeria feel that we want that owner to project when they go into community. So we really look at their personality and whether or not they have that kind of outgoing community, just that whole sense about themselves.
Yeah, I think that's so important, Mary Jane. I'll tell you a funny story. There's a pizza place that we go to here in Easton, Pennsylvania, and we've been going there now for about 11 years, and the owner of the place has still yet to say hi to me. I don't think he knows my name. And you think of all the business that we've given him, and it's great because the location is great, so it's right there, and the pizza is pretty good. But I tell you, his customer service skills are just horrible, and I just say, he wouldn't be a good franchisee to the pizza factory, that's for sure. It's but that's so important. Exactly what you're looking for, and it makes sense that it has to be someone who really wants to be part of the community, and knowing your customers' names is so important, isn't it? You get to know them over time, and what I love about pizza too is you have that repeat sale factor, don't you? I mean, once you start building that client base, everything seems to flow from that point, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And the marketing and how you approach those guests, because ultimately when you forget that guest that's walking in the door, and maybe they're walking into your store 200-300 times a year, if you don't know that, shame on you.
Exactly.
Absolutely. That guest is that's why you're open, and we try to really impress upon our employees. That guest that's walking in your door right now is why you're getting a check. It's not because I'm writing that check. It's because that guest is, and that should be respected and acknowledged. And, that's just always been something that the Pizza Factory, that our brand, that's what we believe in. We believe that you give back. You get what you give, and you should be. So you're going into community, and you want this community to support you. Well, you know what? You should be supporting them right back and doing what you can to be a part of that community, and not just expecting to take.
Right. And this formula has proven to be successful. Again, being around such a long time now, that that this particular formula works. You have this successful track record, so I think that's terrific. How does the training work, Mary Jane? I mean, once you decide you do like them, they like you, and they want to come on board as a franchisee, do they typically come out to headquarters for training? Is that how it works?
It's a little bit of that. We have some classroom training that's at headquarters, and then we also have a training kitchen. So instead of just putting them into a training store that's actually a live working restaurant, we like to put them in a training kitchen for a week, and then they're just
Right.
one-on-one with our food and beverage supervisor, and they learn the product. They learn our culture, because it's the product. Everything has to reflect our culture, which is our mission statement is to be awesome. And so
That's
everything
great.
that we do, whether it's we make our food, how we represent ourselves, everything has to reflect that mission statement that it's awesome. So we put them in a week, and we want them to not only learn the food exactly the way it should be made, but we also want them to understand why and what the importance is and all the culture part that goes with it, so that they understand when they get into their own store that culture is going to resonate in their community. So then after that, they go
Right.
into a live working training store, and they're there for about 3 weeks. And then once they open their store, we have an opening crew. It's a corporate staff that goes and works with them for a week. And then we have the ongoing support that goes on, for the term of their franchise, of course. We're really big into education, keeping the
Right.
franchisees educated and not letting them get behind, because it's so hard to keep up with everything.
Sure.
It just really is. And we know that. I'm still a franchisee. I started out as a franchisee back in 1990, and then we bought the company in 2012. So I'm still a franchisee, and I will remain a franchisee because we want to make sure that we're always close to that pulse of what the franchisee is going through. And
Right.
so, when we came onto this, it wasn't that we didn't have any knowledge of it. We really do live and breathe what everybody goes through every day as a franchisee. So that plays a big role in the decisions that we make.
Yeah, I imagine it does. I mean, you can empathize certainly with your franchisees, and not all franchisors can actually say that. They haven't all been franchisees, within the system, So I think that's really important and fantastic. So I guess I can ask you what a typical day is like, because you are a franchisee. I mean, what is that like for a pizza factory franchisee, Mary Jane?
Different levels depending on the size of your store, obviously, and the
Right.
volume. But for me personally, the store opens up around, you get to the store between 9 and 10, and you do your morning,
Right.
your morning getting ready, and then it starts at 11. You've got your lunch crowd, and the prep is done during the day, and then you have your night crowds, rushes. Hopefully, you have fundraisers going on and parties, because we have party rooms. So you gauge yourself for that kind of, and then you're making the product. That's one of the, for me, I'll go in, if I'm visiting stores or my own store, that's the first thing I want to do is get behind that table and make a pizza.
Wow.
There's just, it's just, we toss
It's
up
fun,
the pizza
isn't it?
still.
Yeah, it is. I had a chance to work
is.
in a pizza store, and I used to and I wasn't the best at it, by the way. I probably wasn't trained by the best person, but, it was always a lot of fun for me to make pizza. It really is. There's something so much, it's a lot of fun to make it, It's really fantastic, So I think that's terrific. That's great. What advice, Mary Jane, would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise? We've been doing the show such a long time now, and one of the biggest things we've learned is that, a lot of our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise, they don't know where to begin, because, like you were saying earlier, there's so much out there today. There's just so much to choose from. Most of them don't even know where to begin. It just becomes overwhelming.
Yep.
From everything you've learned, up to this point, what advice would you give to our listeners?
Well, there's a couple things, and one that as we're going through this journey ourselves from being a franchisee to the franchisor, it's understanding the roles of the franchisor versus the franchisee. That's a really big important, really what is the role that you're playing versus the franchisor. And then when you're looking at brands, the other thing for brands to me is really looking under the hood. Don't just look at all the stuff on the surface. Really dig down. See what extra charges there, are they marking up stuff? Really evaluate a brand to a brand and not just the fluff kind of stuff that you see on the top. And it's a lot of due diligence. Right. But, ask the questions that are going to be once you're in there. Are they marking up the food product? Are they marking up advertising materials? What are you paying? So really, really dig down and ask a lot more questions. And I would talk to a lot of franchisees that are in the system and see how they feel about the franchisor and the brand itself. I would do a lot of due diligence with franchisees because they're the ones that are going to tell you.
Right, absolutely. I love how you said look under the hood. You know, as I've mentioned, doing the show such a long time, I've never heard that analogy before. I think that's very clever, to look under the hood, you know, to go deep, you know, inside and look what's under, not just what's on top. You know, we have this great quote in franchising. I'm going to put that one in there because I think that's fantastic. You know, it makes a lot of sense. And, you know, Pizza Factory, I mean, you have a lot of franchisees that you can call, right? I mean, I think you're up to, is it over 100 franchisees now, Mary Jane? So there's plenty of people,
we've got
you know,
some
that
have,
oh, good.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say we have them. They've been in the system for 30 years. We have franchisees, you know, that have been in that long, and we have them that are just getting on. So there's a wide range. So, and you want to hit all those. You know, you want to hit the newbies. You want to hit the older ones. You want to get their feel of what's been going on and how they've been treated. And but yeah, there's a lot of people to call. There's a lot of people to ask. There's a lot of different town sizes. So when you're doing your due diligence, you know, really get out there and dig deep.
That's terrific. What I can ask you the last question, Mary Jane, because that's, you know, being the leadership role of the company. I mean, where do you see Pizza Factory? I mean, if you could look into a crystal ball, maybe 3 years, 5 years down the road, where do you see the organization?
You know, it's funny because I do that a lot. But certainly at the beginning of each year when we're coming up to 2018, that's, you know, I always do an evaluation of where we're looking. Education is still always going to be the forefront for me, educating the franchisees, educating myself. The other is the growth. We're expanding out further east now, so I see us growing. Texas is a big state for us right now, and Wyoming. So I see us growing. We became a partnership with the Sharks, the NHL team on the West Coast. We're their official pizza. Yeah, so that's exciting. So we're looking at ways to keep our brand alive and keep it relevant because people are they still want a place to go and meet with. As much as this millennial thing is out there where everybody's on their phone, they are, but they still like that community. And we're always going to stay true to that, which is community. Whether you're in a restaurant or we're out in the town, that's still going to be. We're not going to change. We're not going to go with these trends of fast. We want people to be engaged with each other, you know, and talk and their kids, and so
That's
so we're
terrific.
going to be growing. We're still
I'm looking forward to you hitting Eastern Pennsylvania. You know, it's you know, I can see you hitting this area, you know, down the road. You know, so I think that's fantastic. What's the best way for our listeners to get more information on Pizza Factory as a franchise opportunity? Of course, Mary Jane, and even the product itself. Are there any websites that they can go to?
Yeah, pizzafactory.com is our website.
Okay.
Franchising is pizzafactoryfranchises.com. Or, you know, we have an 800 number. Google us, 1-800-654-4840. But they'll find us. We're out there.
That's fantastic. Well, I've really enjoyed having you on the show, Mary Jane. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 14 years now, we've been asking the Franchipreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. Well, we're meeting with Tom Kraus, the CEO of Donato's. And Donato's is a family-owned, privately held company that treats its franchise partners like they're part of their family. Their mission is to promote goodwill through their products and service, principles, and people. Hi, Tom. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Marty. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
This is my pleasure, Tom. We always like to ask our guests, where are you calling from this morning, Tom?
Calling from beautiful Columbus, Ohio.
That's it. You know what's amazing when I think about it, Tom, because this is where Donato's actually got their start, didn't they?
That's right. Yeah, we started on the south side of Columbus 58 years ago.
That's incredible. That number, I mean, that amazes me, Tom. We've been doing this show now 14 years, and it's very rare that I get to hear a number like that. You know, it's like usually 10 years, 20 years, but 57 years. I mean, it's fantastic. And, you know, I mean, when we talk about Donato's, Tom, I mean, what an amazing history, as you mentioned. You know, I mean, you go all the way back to, I guess it's like 1963. And, you know, the story is kind of amazing, too. I mean, when you think about it, and I know you know this story, but, you know, Jim Grody, you know, starts the organization for, I think it was like a little over $1,000. Maybe you could talk like a little bit about, you know, some of the highlights that's happened over the last, you know, 57 years.
57 years. Let me see if I can squeeze that into a minute.
It's not easy.
Well, Jim's my father-in-law, and he started when he actually bought the name and the recipe for Donato's when he was 19 years old. He was a sophomore at Ohio State, and He borrowed money from his father and his future father-in-law to start this little pizza shop on the south side of Columbus.
Wow.
It was Jim's whole idea. He started working when he was 13, washing pizza pans at a little pizza shop.
Wow.
And this pizza shop is owned by these two different gentlemen. One was a real friendly fellow who loved his customers and people, and the other was kind of a miserly. He's the kind of guy that would he'd water down the pizza sauce at the end of the night so he could get 3 more pizzas out of it, kind of thing.
Oh, that's funny.
And my father-in-law watched the differences in how these two gentlemen did business, and he noticed the nights that the one gentleman worked, business was great. The nights when the other gentleman worked, it wasn't. And from then on, he said, I'm going to do business someday, and I'm going to do it with ethics and morals and values, and that's really kind of the basis for Donato's.
It seemed like, too, as I was studying the history of Donato's, Tom, Jim was very big on consistency, and he still is today, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. He's fanatical about consistency.
Yeah.
In fact, he developed a system, an operating system that really no one in the industry has anything like this. It makes it super easy for any operator to run and make pizzas and run the pizza shop, and it makes for an absolutely consistent product every time.
Part of the history, too, I'm a big fan, Tom, of the show Undercover Boss, and I remember when Donato's was on Undercover Boss. I mean, I guess you could probably say that's part of the history, too, isn't it? Because we've had guests like Catherine Monson on the show in the past, she talked about her experience, but I'm sure that certainly played a positive role or an interesting role in the history of Donato's, hasn't it?
Oh, it sure did. We were presented with the idea. We have friends over at White Castle, and they were one of the first people that were on that show, and they had mentioned us to the network, and so we looked at it and we said, you know what? No matter what happens, we treat people with goodwill, and whatever happens, we'll respond in the right way. And of course, we didn't expect some of the things that happened on the show, but it really ended up being a great experience. We were able to help some people in a pretty meaningful way, and it did show a little bit about the way Donato's treats people, and that was a positive thing too. It was nice to see.
Was that what drew you to Donato's, Tom? Because, I was studying your background, and by the way, you have a very impressive background, and I was kind of even starstruck. That you got to, you worked with Wendy's for a long time, you got to know Dave Thomas. What drew you to Donato's? What was it? Was it the family atmosphere that drew you to the organization?
That's a great question, Marty, because, I was, at the time, I had been at Wendy's for probably 16 years, 17 years, something like that. Was vice president of marketing there. And like you said, I got a chance to work with one of the great icons in the restaurant business, Dave Thomas, very closely. And I was super happy in my career at the time. What was going on at Donato's? Donato's had just been purchased by McDonald's. McDonald's had bought Donato's, Boston Market, and Chipotle as part of they called it a meal occasion strategy. They were growing different brands. So they had purchased Donato's, and they were building a team, to grow. And so honestly, they approached me, and I really saw it as just a job opportunity. I was super happy at Wendy's, but and then I fell in love with this company. I fell in love with the values of the company, fell in love with the product. And actually, years later, I fell in love with the founder's daughter, and she's my wife, Jane. She's the chairwoman of that company. And so I'm all in. Let's put it that way.
That's fantastic.
I'm kind of all in here.
It is. It's a great story when I hear it, Tom. It's really amazing. And Donato's is certainly a powerful brand name, but if there's anyone who's unfamiliar with Donato's, Tom, how do you typically describe your organization to, let's say, a prospective franchisee? Well,
I would say a few things. One is, and probably first and foremost, is the product. It is a super premium product. We have we use fresh sliced veggies on our pizza. We have lots of toppings, like a large pepperoni pizza has 100 pepperonis on it. We have a thin crust that we're known for. So there are a lot of aspects about our product that really makes it kind of the highlight. The other part is our operating system. It is like I said, Jim developed a way to produce pizzas that you're not mixing dough in the back of the room, and you're not having the inconsistent product that you get when you're dealing with, those types of pizzas. So we produce the pizza crusts in our commissary here. Mm-hmm. Those are shipped to the stores, and then the process to make a pizza is automated and very, very simple. So, that's great. It's that aspect, and then the last aspect is really the people side, and it's we are very focused on bringing your character, bringing your whole self to work every day. Right. We're a family organization. We truly are a family organization. We have our third generation is working within the company right now, but it really feels different here, and the culture, I think, is the one thing. If you'd ask any of our franchise partners, and by the way, we call them franchise partners because that's how we operate, but they would say it's a real family feel. So we're very supportive. It's not like a lot of franchise organizations where it's a concept and an operating manual, and then good luck and we'll see you later. We're there with them all along the way.
Yeah, I mean that's what I get when I research Donato's, Tom, is the culture. It's the culture is a big part of the brand. And it makes sense. As far as franchising, when you become a franchisee to Donato's, I mean you become part of that family, don't you?
Oh, most definitely. We, like I said, the family was not intending to sell to McDonald's back in '99, and McDonald's approached them, and it was an opportunity to grow the business. McDonald's interests went elsewhere. 4 years later, their stock dropped, and they were wanting to get out of the business. And the family bought it back, and they bought it back because of the people. And that's the kind of organization this is. We're not. We're in the people business. We happen to serve pizza as a way to impact people, but we're trying to make a difference. We're trying to make a difference in all the communities that we do business in. We're very, very active in the communities, very active in the nonprofit worlds. My wife, Jane, and her dad helped fund and created a nonprofit on the south side of Columbus that's really impacting people in need and literally saving people's lives. That's the kind of thing that we want to do. Everybody loves pizza, and if you can be successful in the pizza business, you have the resources to help not only your employees, but the people in the community. So we have a phrase, it's bigger than the pizza. That's what we like to say around here.
I like that. I like that. And you've done, not to embarrass you, Tom, but you've done a very good job, a great job with your organization. I know there was 1 year, you were voted, was it the CEO of the year, and it's interesting, because you have a marketing background like myself, and you say, what was all that attributed to?
The CEO of the year, we just paid them off. No, I'm just kidding.
That's great.
No, I think it's a tribute to the whole culture of the organization.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fortunate to be able to lead the people here, and but it's really the culture and the difference that we're trying to make. We've had a pretty successful run here in the last 10 years, and we've got a big future ahead of us. So we're excited.
That's great. It's wonderful. The theme of the show last year, Tom, is we couldn't seem to get away from COVID. A lot of businesses, of course, had to pivot, and shift a bit. How has the pandemic played a role with Donato's?
Well, I'll tell you, there were a number of silver lining type things I would point to. One was it taught us how to communicate better to the organization. I mean, we thought we did a good job, but when every 3 days something different was happening in the world, we had to learn how to stick together and communicate. We also looked at technology. We had been working on a number of technology advances, and so we accelerated a lot of those. our digital ordering platform. About 60% of our business is done over online, and most of that's over the phone. We had to, we put some new features into that. We have pickup windows in a number of our restaurant locations. Right. So we were able to optimize the pickup side of the business. So, a lot of things that we were working on, it really kind of forced us to accelerate. Right. And, the pizza business really did well. We did well from a sales standpoint, right? Because that's what customers were at home and needed food, and we were there to provide it to them.
Yeah, I mean, pizza's comfort food too, isn't it, Tom? You know what I mean? It's just, we order pizza once a week. It does. It makes you feel better. And it was interesting how you mentioned, a lot of businesses. That's what I noticed too, Tom, was that a lot of franchises, they were kind of forced to get to the next base quicker. You know what I mean? They said we got to do something quickly. Maybe it would have taken a lot longer. If it wasn't for the pandemic. So I think it's interesting. And pizza. I guess it's safe to say. I don't know what the numbers are, but it's safe to say it's a pretty big industry, isn't it?
Oh, it's $43 billion industry.
Wow, is it that high? That's amazing.
And when my father-in-law started and he was trying to borrow money from his father said, "Well, I don't know, Jim. I think pizza's a fad."
Isn't that great?
Turns out he was wrong about that.
Right, he was.
But and our sales, we were up double digit during the pandemic. Our average unit volume is about 1.3 million per restaurant, which is in the top 95% of the pizza competitors. Right. So we were fortunate. The challenge right now is the labor market is difficult. And so we're doing everything we can to. We have a few innovative ideas. We have something we're testing right now called not an interview, but a dinnerview. Meaning, if you come in for an interview, we're gonna provide you dinner in form of a pizza.
Oh, wow. So, that's great. That's clever.
It is. The team came up with that.
Very clever. Yeah,
I think it's just super interesting. So.
That's fantastic. Do you think did Jim know? Did he see? And I know you can't speak for him, Tom, but he was 19 years old when he started, Donato's, and he starts working at 13 years old. My son is 13 now, and I said, "Oh my God, Jim Brody was." Working in a pizzeria at 13 years old. I got to tell my son that story. But, did he see the big picture, of where Donato's is today, or would he have been surprised, like, if you talked to him as the 19-year-old person saying, okay, this is where the organization's going to go? What is his reaction, or what was his reaction?
Marty, what a great question. Jim he has always been a visionary type person. Even when he was that young, and he used to take the kids out in their pajamas at night after work under the sign, the first, blinking lights that said Donato's, and said, "We're going to be around the world one day." He would tell his little kids that, and and his goal wasn't just to be around the world, but it was to really make an impact in every neighborhood. And he's always been the kind of person that. There was a bigger purpose, and he did see it. He has a knack for visualizing the future, and then it tends to happen. It may not happen exactly the way he visualized it, but we get there. It's he's an amazing guy.
He must be, yeah. Because it sounds so young to me, 19 now, Tom. You know what I mean? I said 19 years old. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh my God. It really is. It's a very impressive story. It really is interesting. What's been? I'm sure you have 100 or maybe even 1,000 stories, Tom. But what's been one of the most interesting things that's happened to you since becoming the president and CEO of Donato's? Like I said, there's probably 100 stories. Tough question.
There's a lot, but I would tell you, so I took this job, I've been here 21 years, and I've been the president CEO for over 10 years. Right. But if you'd asked me 10 years ago to fast forward and say that we would be selling double-digit sales in cauliflower crust pizza 1 month before a 100-year pandemic hit, I would have said you're crazy.
Yeah, but
that's really what happened. Last February, we introduced cauliflower crust pizza with plant-based sausage, which is, just a kind of not something you would have thought of, 10 years ago. But, our sales were jumping, and then, the floor dropped out when, they started closing the restaurant side of the business. Our business took a wobble for a few weeks and then kind of rebounded.
Like everybody else,
that would be an interesting one. I think there was also a time when some sort of rogue coupon was like a counterfeit coupon was being sent out throughout our entire system, and customers were coming into our dining rooms in droves. We had to close dining rooms. We had crowds outside. We had crowd control.
Oh no!
My wife and I were having dinner at a restaurant, and our phones started binging.
Right, of course.
Our managers were like saying, "Please make it stop, make it stop." But there's all sorts of stories, as you say. But it's a fun business.
It is a fun business. It's interesting, Tom, how like pizza has changed, like you said. You know what I mean? Like over the years, I remember when I was a kid, I was 19 years old. I remember working in a pizzeria. But I mean, it's interesting how pizza has changed. Particularly like you mentioned, over the last maybe 5 years, 10 years. I mean, I see there's organic pizza, there's gluten-free pizza. I mean, who would have ever saw those changes coming, right?
Exactly. But you really do. You've got to keep up with the times, and you want to make sure you maintain who you are, but also stay current with the times. And I feel like our team does a great job with that. I'm super proud of them.
That's great. Maybe we talk a little bit about franchising, Tom. What types of characteristics does Donato's look for in their franchisees? When you're meeting with a prospective franchisee, you probably have some type of idea, if they're going to be a match or not. What do you look for? Yeah,
we are looking for a certain set of character traits, mostly. Obviously, there's a financial requirement. It's not significant. Our average investment is about $500,000, so it's not onerous. But we're looking for someone that's really committed to the business. We're not looking for passive investors necessarily. We're looking for people that are interested in. Now, we're looking for multi-unit operators, so they may not necessarily be at GM level, but they are going to get their hand, roll up their sleeves, get their hands dirty, and be involved in the business. Mostly, we're looking for people that understand people. They need to understand how to lead their teams, so they've got to have the right kind of characteristics, and they need to lead them in the right way. This isn't a command and control company. This is a company where we're all better together, and when we operate like family. So how they treat their people and how they treat customers. The ones that are most successful are the ones that, they're proud to wear the Donato's logo on their shirt, and they're proud to go out into the community and partner with schools or churches or organizations, and those are the ones that really are able to build their business and have a good time. So I'm kind of describing the one gentleman that Jim Grody worked for when he was 13 years old.
Of course.
Friendly with the customers and really understood his people. And that's really what we're looking for. And we also want people that want to grow with us. We have a pretty significant growth trajectory right now, and we have a lot of open territories. So we want people that want to come in and be successful with 1, 2, 3 stores, and then continue to grow from there. So it's a lot of upside.
Great. That's terrific. What's the training like, Tom? I mean, I'm sure the training changed a little bit. I noticed with, COVID, starting last year, a lot of the interviews I did over the last year, training did have to change to some extent. But how does the training work, once someone does become a new franchisee to Donato's?
Well, after we sign them, and it varies depending on what kind of level of operator we're talking to, but it's about a 9-week training program, and we'll bring them to either into Columbus or in a market near where they're opening, and they'll go through, pretty exhaustive. They need to understand all aspects of the business, and
Yeah.
And it's really a great program. And to a T, everyone who's been through it was so thankful for it, because it really gives a real clear picture of what it takes to be successful as a Donatos franchise partner.
And your industry, I mean, I guess you can classify it as, I mean, it's a fun business to be in, Tom. I mean, and I guess that's what maybe drew you also towards, maybe the food industry. But you kind of hinted on some of them. But what's a typical day like for a Donatos franchisee? You mentioned the importance of wearing the brand name, getting out into the community. Maybe you can talk a little bit about it.
It is a fun job. I think a typical day is gonna there'll be time with their team, likely a pre-shift rally before they get started for the day.
Right.
Reviewing what are their goals for the day or for that evening. Recognizing people for their accomplishments most recently. So there's a bit of a celebration as well as a here's where we're heading today or this weekend.
Right.
Then they'll go visit each restaurant, problem solve. They'll probably help interview, looking for new people. So they're always looking for new people.
Right.
And then they'll coach and develop. So if you've got an assistant manager that's, got some visions of doing something greater, they'll spend some time with that AGM or a trusted associate and talk to them about their future and help grow their career at Donatos. And then they'll go out into the community and go to the Chamber of Commerce meetings. And likely we'll put on the apron and bring pizzas to an event and shake hands and, kiss babies and shake hands.
Exactly.
With a mask on now and with gloves on, I guess. But
that's terrific. Yeah, that's great. Though. Yeah. No, I think that's fantastic. And you have all these years of experience, Tom. What advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise, Tom? Because, there seems like there's so much out there today. I think they said there's something like 3,000, 3,500 systems. And we found that, doing the show such a long time now, that in the early phases of someone interested in buying a franchise, they're a little bit confused because they say, oh my God, there's, all these different industries and, all these different choices. From everything you've learned up to this point of working with franchisees, what advice would you give them in their quest to buy a franchise?
I think the whole key is putting the right resources in the right spot. So I'll use a quote from one of my old bosses at Wendy's, Jim Neer, who he always talked about batteries not included. And what he meant by that was, if you're going to be a franchisee or a franchise partner, as we call them, you're buying into a system that exists. So don't put your energy trying to change the system or change the recipe or work that side of the system. Put your energy in bringing your whole self into the business. Bring your energy into leading your people. Bring the energy into building the business in the community or giving back to the community. I've noticed those that are less successful don't put their energy into that, but they're trying to revise something that already is a part of the operating plan that, maybe it's not perfect, but if you're spending your time trying to change the recipe or the operating system, maybe franchising isn't what you want to do. Maybe you want to start your own restaurant. And so I think the key, but more importantly, I think is batteries aren't included. So put your whole energy into building a culture within the organization and building a reputation in the community. That's where you'll win every time. You'll win every time.
Yeah. No, I think that's great advice. I love that analogy, batteries not included. It's about trust, isn't it, Tom? If you're going to invest into a system, like Donatos, is you have to have that level of trust, don't you? In order to...
Yeah, you really do. And it's not to say that, we really do a lot of collaborating with our franchise system. We have an advisory council, and we meet regularly, and we get advice from them, and they help guide the business. But once we've decided, what the program is or whatever, let's go ahead and just execute that program. So
Right. Absolutely. That's fantastic. So I can ask you, the final question, Tom, is as the CEO, I mean, where do you see Donato's maybe, if you could look into a crystal ball, 3 years, 5 years down the road, where do you see the organization?
Well, I'll tell you, we, I talk about making a difference, and we have this mission to promote goodwill through our product, service, principles, and people. And that's really another way of saying we want to be a company that gives more than it receives. We want to make an impact. So we have a phrase, our vision phrase is that we want to be $1 billion company that gives more than it receives.
Wow.
And when I say that, I mean, yes, we get $14 for a pizza, but what we give in return is, we hire 14, 15-year-olds. Not a lot of companies do that.
Right,
but we know the impact that has on young people. We hire second chance individuals and give them a chance to turn their lives around, and we help people, create a vision through franchising that they can be successful for their families. So it's important for us to grow. So we're probably a quarter of the way there, but we just announced recently that we are now officially franchising nationwide. So we have not been
great.
We've only been franchising in kind of contiguous areas to our regional footprint, but now we're able to open up to the entire country, and the interest has been huge. So we got big things coming.
That's terrific. That is exciting. What's the best way, Tom, for our listeners to get more information on Donato's as the franchise opportunity and even the product itself, of course? Are there any websites you can kind of direct them to?
Yeah, you can just go to www.donatos.com. We have a franchising tab.
Okay.
We have, a menu there. We have information on how we give back. Everything you need will be right there. Or you can call here to our headquarters and talk to Jeff Baldwin as our head of franchise development. Great individual with a lot of experience who will kind of guide you through the process.
That's terrific. Well, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed talking to you today, Tom, and I'd really like to invite you back.
Interviews.
Franchise interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 12 years now, we've been asking the Franchpreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. We're meeting with Jeff Melnick, the president of Boston's Pizza, Restaurant, and Sports Bar. And Boston's is both a family-friendly casual dining restaurant and an energetic sports bar, all under one roof. Hi, Jeff. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Hi, Marty. Thanks.
This is my pleasure, Jeff. It was I just realized, I checked before the show, last time we had Boston's on the show was almost 7 years ago. So it's been a while. So I know you've had a lot of, great changes and a lot of growth to your business. So I was really excited to speak with you today. Maybe you could tell our listeners where you're calling from today, Jeff.
I'm calling from Dallas, Texas, where our U.S. headquarters is.
Oh, fantastic. And, that 50 years, that's quite an impressive number, isn't it, Jeff? We've been doing the show now 12 years, and I can't say we've had a lot of franchise organizations that have been in business 50 years, so that's quite a milestone, isn't it?
It really is. It's an incredible story behind the business and what Jim has been able to do with this brand and how we've been able to grow it for the consumer, the guest, as well as our franchise partners.
That's great. Maybe you could talk a little bit. Again, it's a long history, Jeff. So going back 50 years is quite a long time. But maybe some of the milestones. How the Boston's. Because we have a lot of new listeners since we've last had you on the show. Talk about some of those milestones over the last 50 years. I know that the organization actually started in Canada, if I remember correctly.
It did. Well, it did. It started in Canada, and it's, but it was really more of the American dream. You had Gus Agordis, who was immigrating from Greece to Canada, and stopped in Boston on his way. When he landed in Edmonton, Alberta, decided to open Boston's Pizza and Spaghetti Warehouse, and found some success in the beginning in 1964. And then, lo and behold, Jim Treliving, who was Royal Canadian Mounted Police Officer, came in and had his first pizza experience, if you can believe that. Had never had the product before, and fell in love with it. And, was successful in being a Mountie, is a huge honor, really had a calling for an entrepreneurial spirit. So he bought the first franchise 4 years later, and then fast forward, he brought on a partner, George Melville. They opened 16 restaurants together and turned around and actually bought the brand from Gus and his family.
Right.
And then after that, they had 44 locations, and now we have over 400 locations in Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. So it's we do over $1 billion in sales, almost $1.2 billion in sales, all franchise-driven. It's just an incredible story for our industry, quite frankly.
That's fantastic. How do you typically describe Boston's Pizza when you're meeting with a prospective franchisee, whether you're at like a franchise trade show, Jeff, or just meeting someone in general? How do you typically describe the concept?
Well, we live off our legacy of pizza, and but we are so much more than that.
Right.
We really have developed into a very family-friendly brand. But also, we kind of use the vernacular of two experiences under one roof, but it's even more than that. So we have a family-friendly side that's dining on that side, and then you have the sports bar that's lively, it's fun, it's energetic, and on top of that, now we're offering delivery, we have catering, we're working into different venues, but it's a scratch kitchen. It's the same recipes they were using 50 years ago with a lot more variations. Yeah, we have 80 menu items now, and continue to work to innovate.
That's incredible. What do you typically, you get to visit many Boston's Pizza, Jeff. What do you typically like when you go into a Boston's? I know you have a lot of choices.
Well, I do. I try to try our newest innovations. We have a buffalo cauliflower that's just amazing.
Oh, wow.
But then you have to go back to some of the traditional pizzas. And we have a pierogi. We bring some of our long-lasting favorites down from Canada, our cactus cuts. And then, as I said, we have new innovation coming on all the time. We have a Korean sausage barbecue pizza that's just stellar.
Oh, wow.
So my waistband certainly shows it. I try to work really hard, but it's hard not to just keep eating when you're in the restaurant.
Of course. That's terrific. One of the biggest changes I noticed, Jeff, in studying from the last time I had Boston's on the show, 7 years ago to today, is it seems like, technology has really played a significant role in the organization. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
It has. I've been doing this for a long, long time, and we used to just take orders on a notepad and hang it in the kitchen, and now we have computer systems that allow us to customize anybody's order. It talks into the kitchen. It allows us to keep track of ticket times. It helps us with food costs. We have a tremendous technology platform, and in addition, what's really exciting is we have online ordering that's developed and launching now. We have a new website that is customizable for all of our franchise owners so they can really talk to their community. And I have a new product in test where we have handheld ordering and payment, which helps with the guest experience and to increase or improve the timing of the experience as well as decrease labor. So we're working on both sides of the technology platform to take care of the guest as well as our franchise partners and help them continue to be profitable. What
is really impressive about your Boston's, Jeff, is, you're really part of, I guess it's safe to say, you're part of several industries, aren't you? It's not just, as you say, it's pizza, you're part of multiple industries. So I guess it's pretty safe to say, you're part of a big industry, aren't you? Or industries.
We really are. We started as solely pizza and have evolved into purely casual dining. We are not some of the other casual dining sports bars out there that's restaurant. We keep a family-friendly focus. But in addition to that, our business, the restaurant industry, is over a $500 billion a year brand or industry.
Right.
That is the second largest employer next to the government. So it's massive.
That's incredible.
And the consumer is changing. We have to change with them. So as I said, we have catering. We have delivery through third-party aggregators as well as our own. We're looking at airport locations, lots of different venues.
Oh, wow. That's terrific. What's been one of the most interesting things that's happened to you, since joining Boston's Pizza? Jeff, you probably have like 100, 200 different stories you can tell me, but does anything stand out since you've been with the organization?
Well, I guess personally, my very first day with the organization was at the Franchise Leadership Conference. And so unbeknownst to me, I walked in, I met Jim, our owner, for the second time, and he said, hey, just so you know, we're going to bring you up on stage and ask you to have some comments for the audience. And the audience was 2,500 people, and I didn't know any of them. So that was probably the craziest personal experience I've had. And then I guess I do deflect back to, I've spent 40 years in the industry, 30 years of it growing up on the corporate side.
Right.
And our ownership structure, so I've worked for public, I've worked for private equity, and now I work for individual ownership. And it is amazing what that allows me to do. I can have a long-term strategy and work towards attaining it and not have to worry about constant profits and or what we're going to do this quarter and reporting to Wall Street. So that empowers my team to be able to really deliver for the franchise partner.
What does Boston's? What do you look for in your franchisees today, Jeff? I'm sure it's changed over 50 years, But I mean, when you or your franchise development team is meeting with a prospective franchisee, I mean, what types of characteristics or traits do you look for in your prospective franchisees?
Well, hopefully they have some experience in the industry, but that's not a prerequisite. What's a prerequisite is they have a passion for the industry and learning about it if they don't already know it. And they have to be an owner-operator. Now, that may not be a long-term vision for them. It may be an investment where they're going to have other day-to-day operators, but they have to want to get in and learn the business and all the nuances and facets of it, because it is a hard business. And we've talked some people out of franchising after explaining to them how difficult it is to be truly successful. But having that emotional connection and wanting to understand how to be successful and follow our practices and procedures really helps them find the success they're looking for.
That's great. What is the training like, Jeff? Do your new franchisees, do they still come down to corporate headquarters?
They do. So it's a 6-week program that we manipulate to break up to the franchise partners' schedule. But that includes training here in our headquarters with technology, understanding the training platforms, as well as in the restaurant, making pizzas and wings, and 6 weeks in the restaurant, learning management skills. So they're front of the house for half of that, back of the house for half of that. And when they come out, they really have an understanding of not only the technology and the systems that are imperative to success, but also really how to make sure that we have the highest quality product. Because our kitchen is scratch. We don't bring in anything pre-made or pre-done. We import our flour from Canada, and after that, it's all following the recipe.
Wow. And I guess that's probably attributed to all the accolades. Since, again, 7 years ago, there's been a number of accolades that Boston's has had, and I didn't even mention them in the introduction. I see the company was, ranked 464 in Entrepreneur Magazine's 2018 Franchise 500 list. You were the brand ranked number 89 in Franchise Times, top 200. There was a number of different accolades that I didn't even mention. I imagine that, all of these things that you're mentioning is probably attributed to these accolades, aren't they?
They really are. One begets the other. So hard work and focus and working on consistency for the guest and that a guest experience. And our food is stellar. Again, having worked with a lot of big brands, I couldn't be more proud of the food that we produce on a daily basis. And in the franchise world, you have to work even harder to make sure people stay on program. And we have committed franchise partners that love the brand even after years and years of being with it.
That's terrific. Because you've been doing this such a long time now, Jeff, what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise? We call them aspiring franchipreneurs. Most of them have it in their mind that they would like to get into franchising. But as you know, there's so much out there to choose from. So many of our listeners are usually overwhelmed in the beginning stages. from everything you've learned up to this point, what would you say to our listeners?
Well, I think the first is that you have to do your homework. You have to really understand the ins and outs. I can't tell you how often I've seen people get close to maybe making a mistake, or heard stories where they have made a mistake, not necessarily with our brand, but with others, where a lease was got away from them, or where they didn't have that, as I mentioned earlier, that emotional connection to really being in this and knowing that it's a long-term commitment. That you only are as good as the last meal you serve that guest, and understanding that commitment. So I think those are two things. One of the other things that I think is really important is to work with the franchisor. Sometimes the numbers can get a little daunting. We build full-size restaurants, and so the capital required can be scary. But we have a lot of partners that help with not only funding. We constantly work to minimize the cost of entry, and to ensure that there's a great return. But doing that homework and having an emotional connection and that hospitality gene that you really want to be in the business to take care of other people is critical for the franchise partners that we talk to. Right.
So as the president, Jeff, I could ask you, if you could look into a crystal ball, 3 to 5 years down the road, and when I interview you again in another 5 years, where do you see Boston's, 3 to 5 years down the road?
Well, I'm working through that process on a daily basis, but we have so much opportunity here. If you think about it, in Canada we have 400 restaurants, and they only have 32 million people in that huge country of theirs. Close to the population of California. And so if you think of the open white space that we have, the opportunities for us is tremendous. Saying that, though, it's tremendously more competitive here. So we are working on a smaller prototype, which will allow us a lot more flexibility. As I said, we have we're working on airports and some non-traditional spaces that we're looking at. So 3 to 5 years from now, we're going to have a smaller prototype that's much more efficient, and we'll probably have some sort of express model that's going to help us in that non-traditional space, in that urban space where we can fit into and satisfy that guest craving, but not need 6,500 square feet. And we'll be at 100 restaurants and growing. So it's an exciting time to be part of the organization and have a great team working to bring all that to life.
That's terrific. How can our listeners, Jeff, get more information on Boston's Pizza? Of course, the franchise opportunity and even the product itself. Any websites that you'd like to direct them to?
Yeah, well, I'd love them to start with bostons.com. There you can not only find out more about our restaurants and where they're located if you want to go explore, but also where to get information more about franchising.
It's impressive you were able to get bostons.com. That's a pretty strong domain name, isn't it, Jeff?
Yeah, it really is. We got lucky with that one.
That's fantastic. Well, it was great to have you on the show, Jeff, and I'd already like to invite you back, over the next year or so as you continue to grow, because I'm a big fan of Boston's, and would love to speak with you again.
Hey, Marty, I really appreciate it. Franchise Interviews is a great platform, and I've enjoyed it. Please reach out anytime.
This has been my pleasure, Jeff. And we'll be right back with more Franchise Interviews.
Coming up on segment 2, you're going to hear what every franchipreneur needs to know before buying a franchise. We're going to play a clip from our popular Great Quotes in Franchising podcast right here on Franchise Interviews.
Are you looking for a franchise that delivers? Businesses will always need shipping, and for more than 25 years, loyal customers have depended on Unishippers for reliable savings and exceptional customer service. Unishippers is focused on just one thing: helping small and medium-sized businesses save time and money on all their shipping needs. And as the largest reseller of complete shipping services in the country, we have the buying power to ensure that we succeed. The Unishippers franchise offers low startup costs, no equipment or real estate required because they're not retail, residual income, and a quality of life and work-life balance. For more information on becoming a Unishippers franchisee, go to www.unishippers.com and click Franchise Opportunities or call Franchise Development at 801-708-5822. That's 801-708-5822. Franchisers, are you looking to reach aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise? Are you looking to reach a highly educated audience on franchising? For over 8 years, Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys, and our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919.
Today's Great Quote in Franchising is being brought to you by
Franchise Teacher. Would you like to know how to franchise your concept or grow your franchise business? Meet the experts at Franchise Teacher. The goal of Franchise Teacher is to teach, coach, consult, and advise. The team of experts at Franchise Teacher will evaluate your business model and present you with a winning business strategy. Franchise Teacher will help you decide whether or not your concept works and if it's franchisable. Franchise Teacher is proud to have over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors. Franchise Teacher are developers of over a dozen franchise systems, which include brick and mortar as well as home-based concepts of nearly 3,000 combined franchise locations. Whether you need to add more units or get more customers, Franchise Teacher can help. We will teach. Franchise Teacher will help you learn our proven system. Coach. Franchise Teacher will help you provide a game plan to succeed. Consult. Franchise Teacher will make sure you stay on track. And advise. Franchise Teacher will help you learn from our over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors. Take advantage of our free, no-obligation phone consultation. Simply go to franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032. That's franchiseteacher.com. Or call us at 561-385-3032.
Hi, everyone. This is Marty McDermott, the president of Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. You know, we've been hosting Franchise Interviews many years now, and during that time, we've had some incredible quotes on our show. Today, you're going to get to hear from Nick Friedman, who is the founder of College Hunks Hauling and Junk and Moving Franchise Opportunity. And Nick said something really quite brilliant on our show that we haven't heard in over a decade of doing franchise interviews. We started speaking about the 4 F's of franchising, and interesting enough, we ended up with 5 F's of franchising as we were doing the interview with Nick. And, you know, in marketing, we talk about the 4 P's of marketing, which is product, price, promotion, and place. So I thought this was really brilliant what Nick said. So here we go with Nick Friedman, the founder of College Hunks Hauling and Junk Moving Franchise Opportunity. What, you know, the majority of our listeners, we call them, Nick, we call them aspiring franchipreneurs. What types of characteristics do you look for in your franchisees?
You know, what I like to say is there's 4 F's when considering a franchise, which is also, I guess, starts with a letter F. So, you know, there's 4 F's that come out of franchise. And I think this is what a prospective franchise should think of when they're considering what franchise they want to pursue. And this is, quite frankly, I think what franchisors should consider when they're evaluating a prospective franchisee. So the first F is fit. You know, do they fit? In other words, do they have transferable skills that can make them effective at this business? Have they done anything in their prior professional or personal lives that would make them be successful in this type of business? The second piece is the family side. In other words, does their family support them in them pursuing this endeavor, whether it's their husband or wife or kids or parents? You know, do they believe in them? Because you don't want things to get tough in their inner circle to say, I told you so. You want them to, you know, kind of cheer them on to get through it. the financial piece is important. In other words, are they capitalized to be able to invest in the opportunity, and do they have realistic financial expectations? And then the last F is the fun factor. Can we have fun working with this individual? Franchising is very much like a partnership, even though that's not typically called that. You got to have, an alignment of vision and values to be able to enjoy working together. So that's really what we look for. We want people that believe in the secret sauce that we've already developed. We don't want somebody to come tell us that they think it should be done differently. We want them to tell us that they believe in what we've created. And sure, we would, want to continuously improve and encourage ideas, but we want folks that believe in the system and are going to execute the system rather than trying to shortcut success by doing it their own way. And I think that's, really no different in our system than any other franchise model that is going to be successful long term. They need to really take into account those factors.
That's great, Nick. We have this great quotes in franchising podcast. Anytime we hear, Michael Gerber's been in there a couple of times, but we're going to put that one in there because I haven't heard that in over a decade, and I think that's great advice to our listeners. It's really fantastic because it's true. I mean, you could really, your business, you could teach to anybody, couldn't you? I mean, pretty much, but it's interesting in putting those factors in there, like family support, and even fun. I haven't heard that, but it should be an enjoyable business. And, because it is a stressful situation for the customers, I guess you got to be able to put a smile on your customer's face, don't you?
Absolutely. And I mean, as you know, there's over 3,000 franchise opportunities out there. So, what's going to separate one from the other? It's got to be something that you can enjoy. And I guess I'll grab another F out of there. I'm on a roll here. Fulfillment. Is it something that, we're going to be fulfilled doing day in and day out? Because I think franchising is a lot like a gym membership. If you join a gym and you've got fitness goals, you're getting access to all types of equipment, personal trainers, coaches, workout groups, but you still got to go and show up and do the work. So if you buy a franchise, you're getting access to the business model in a box. You're getting access to trainers, coaches, fellow franchisees that you can, hold each other accountable with, but you still got to show up and put in the effort to execute that business model. So that's where I think those factors come into play.
Once you decide that, you do like them, and they like you, Nick, and there is a fit, what is the training like? I mean, do they typically come to Florida for training? How does that work? If you'd like to hear that whole interview with Nick Friedman of the College Hunks Hauling and Junk Moving franchise opportunity, all you have to do is go to franchiseinterviews.com, go to our franchise interviews by category page, and then go to our home repair and improvements page, and you'll be able to listen to that whole show with Nick Friedman. It was really a fantastic interview. It was great to finally have Nick on the show. And lastly, we'd just like to thank everyone for making this podcast such a big hit. It's hard to imagine. We've been doing it now over 10 years, and it's just amazing to see where the podcast has gone. So thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you again soon with another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, sponsored by Franchise Interviews. Take care, everyone.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.